filthy swines, get in here, sit down. We're going to do this. We're going to read some news. There's an interesting trend going on various governments around the world to protect children from social media, which seems a little bit late. It seems like we're trying to shut the barn doors after the horses already bolted. Social media has been around for decades now. There's a whole generation of Gen Zers who have just been saturated from birth. And there's also concerns that I have that potentially some of the concerns for protecting children are being used to whitewash other intentions to generally crack down on information dissemination and such. Covering this kind of subject is an article on TechCrunch written by Aisha Malik. These are the countries moving to ban social media for children. And I actually like the idea of limiting children's access to social media. It's extremely dangerous, and it kind of goes in line with my fear for passive access of adult material and how that can get in front of children's attention. Over the past several months, many countries have announced plans to restrict social media access for children and teens. Australia became the first to implement such measures at the end of last year, setting a precedent that other countries are now closely watching. Australia's regulations, along with other countries' proposals, aim to reduce the pressure and risk that young users may face on social media, which includes cyberbullying, addiction, mental health issues, and exposure to predators, and I would also say exposure to pornography, particularly hardcore pornography, which sometimes crops up on platforms like X, which is a bit of a surprise, really, why we'd be having that and what we refer to as the digital town hall or town centre. Of course, there are concerns about privacy regarding invasive age verification and excessive government intervention. Critics, including Amnesty Tech, have said such bans are ineffective and that they ignore the realities of younger generations. Despite this, many nations are moving ahead with proposed legislation. We've compiled a list of countries that are considering or have already moved forward with bans on social media for young users. Hopefully there's some details on the features of these laws. Australia became the world's first country to ban social media for children under 16 in December 2025. The ban blocks children from using Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Threads, TikTok, X, YouTube, Reddit, Twitch, and Kick. Notably doesn't include WhatsApp or YouTube Kids. Okay, well, YouTube Kids is curated for kids. It's not always got content on there that you want your kids to see, though. I've seen some occasions where there have been, let's say, some very LGBTQ plus pro content on there. Whether you like that or not, I don't know. The Australian government has said these social media companies must take steps to keep children off their service. Companies that fail to comply may face penalties of up to 49.5 million Australian dollars, 34.4 million US dollars. The government says these platforms should use multiple verification methods to ensure that people using their service are older than 16. It also notes that they can't rely on users simply entering their own age. Okay, so they're the first. Denmark is set to ban social media platforms for children under 15. The Danish government announced in November 2025 that it had secured support for the ban from 3 governing coalition parties and 2 opposition parties in parliament. The government's plans could become law as soon as mid-2026, according to the Associated Press. The Danish Digital Affairs Ministry is also launching a digital evidence app that includes age verification tools that may be used as part of the ban. France. In late January, French lawmakers passed a bill that would ban social media for kids under 15. President Emmanuel Macron has supported the measure as a way to protect children from excessive screen time. The bill still has to get through the country's Senate before a final vote in the lower house. Germany. In early February, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz conservatives discussed a proposal to ban children under 16 from using social media, Reuters reported. However, there were signs that his centre-left coalition partners were hesitant to support an outright ban. So the problem there is it focused on children, or are there other issues that are being lumped in there? And this is the fear that I have. Yes, protecting children is important, but how are you actually dealing with that? Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis announced in April that the country is going to ban access to social media for children under 15 starting January 2027. That dude says the move is aimed at tackling rising anxiety and sleep problems among children, as well as the addictive design of social media. A few years back, I remember there was one dreadful summer where Game Boy Advances were banned in Greece because of some overly zealous law that was targeting electronic gambling devices, and somehow the legislation had accidentally created this umbrella that banned Game Boys as well, which was ridiculous. Sorry, Greece, you messed that one up. Indonesia said in early March that it's banning children under the age of 16 from using social media and other popular online platforms. The country plans to start with platforms such as YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Threads, X, Bigo Live, what's that, and Roblox. Malaysia said that in November 2025 it plans to ban social media for children under 16. Slovenia, children under 15 from accessing social media. The country's prime minister announced in early February. The government wants to regulate social networks where content is shared, citing platforms such as TikTok, Snapchat, and Instagram. It's curious why all of these independent countries in Europe are crafting laws. Couldn't the EU create some overarching law? Spain's Prime Minister announced in early February that the country plans to ban social media for children under the age of 16. The ban still needs parliamentary approval. The Spanish government is also seeking to create a law that would make social media executives personally accountable for hate speech on their platforms. The United Kingdom is weighing a ban on social media for children under 16. The government says it will consult parents, young people, and civil society for their views to determine whether a ban would be effective. But also consider whether to require social media companies to limit or remove features that drive compulsive use, such as endless scrolling. Oh, this was originally published in February. I'm late to the party. It's an important subject, and there's so many European countries are jumping on this bandwagon, and I approve of the idea. I'm just curious and concerned that perhaps they might be a bit overzealous and using this as a smokescreen for other limitations on access to information. It's not like a child is able to watch a horror movie that's maybe made for 18-year-olds or whatever. That's a discrete experience. When a child is able to access adult spaces online, it's a whole different ballpark because they end up getting involved in communities of people who have much more adult perspectives, who are sharing information and discussing things, and they can interact with them. Keeping children off social media, I think, is perhaps a bit of a broad stroke, but I think it's a good thing. Honestly, I think it is. I think there should be less access for children to social media. If there is social media, then it needs to be specifically targeting and made for children and curated for them. So I think in principle, a lot of these things seem good. In practice, I'm concerned that maybe these are going to be used to crack down on freedom of speech that don't necessarily pertain to children. Like having to identify yourself simply to access the internet freely. But also, what with AI being so bloody clever and bot accounts becoming pretty ubiquitous, it's inevitable that in order to access the internet and use it properly, you're going to have to identify yourself in some way. And you already see that on X. I don't really give any credence to anybody's opinion if they're not verified, because you don't know who they are. It could just be a bot account from some farm in China or who knows where, without any verification. You don't know if that's a real person. So unfortunately, I think we're going to have to do this. I think there's going to have to be some kind of identity verification to access certain services online. And this seems to be one of the ways they're pushing this. So I want to see it done correctly as it seems to be going on X. I like the way X is doing it. It's elective, but we'll have to see. But that is it for now. Make sure you hit that like button. Subscribe if you like what I do. I do it as often as I can. But the only thing I have left to say now is Pigwig out.
Oink, oinkity, snort, snuffle, snuffle, squee, oink, oink, wee, squeal, snort, snort, oinkity, squee. Oink, 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 squee, squee, wee, 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 snuffle, snort, squeal, squeal, oinky, oink, snort, snort, squee, oink, 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 wee, 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 oh. Snort. oink, squee, squeal, re, snort, oinkity, oinkity, oink, oink, schnuffle, re, squee, snort, oink, squeal. Oink, 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 squee, squee, re, shuffle, snort, squeal, squeal, oinky, oink, snort, snort, squee, oink, 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 oinkity, snort, schnuffle, snuffle, squee, oinkity, oink, oink, snuffle, re, snort, oink, squeal. Oink, 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 squee, squee, re, shuffle, snort, squeal, squeal, oinky, oink, snort, snort, squee, oink, 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 squeal, squeal. Snort, shuffle, oink, re, snort, oinky, oinkity, oink, 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 shuffle, re, snort, oink, squeal, oink, oink, oinkity, squee, re, snuffle, snort, squeal, squeal, oinky, oink, snort, snort, squee, oink, oink,